Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Live Free Now Show. We have a great program lined up for you today. We're going to talk about how technocracy, the beast system, is accelerating across the globe, especially in the wake of the war with Iran. We are going to respond to some critiques of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency that came in the wake of an interview I did on Alec Zeck's Way Forward podcast. And my friends, finally, I'm going to give you a recap and some takeaways from my recent trip to Haven Village, a private realm community in Tennessee. While the predator class may be accelerating their agenda and technocracy is being built all around us, there are concrete steps that you can take in order to create greater freedom in your lives. And if you want to learn how to do just that, you're tuned in to the right place. This is the Live Free Now Show. All right, so I was recently in Tennessee at my good friend River and Amani's place in Haven Village. It's in Old Fort, Tennessee, but they have a 216-acre private realm community called Haven Village. It's centered around regenerative agriculture and hemp-built natural homes, which is really cool. When I say a private realm community, it's because the land is held in a private, common law, irrevocable trust. The community is organized and governed by a private membership association, and it's all under the protection of a ministry, Haven Earth Ministry. Really cool project. You can learn about this strategy. It's called the Trifecta: Trust, PMA, and Ministry. We put together a free webinar with my PMA, Divine Purpose PMA. Check that out at divinepma.com/webinar, divinepma.com/webinar. I'm going to share a little bit more about that project and some of the insights that I had while being there in one of the immersions that takes place regularly. But I also want to break down, like, while I was there, you don't have good internet access in some areas. There is Starlink and fiber's coming to town as we speak, which is pretty cool for those that are going to want to work away from home or work out of the office, but work at home. But I was checking my phone periodically, checking the X feed, which is where I get much of my news. And I tell you what, I could tell that the technocracy is accelerating at breakneck speed. It was but a few weeks ago when I was talking to a few people. This is right after the onset of the war in Iran. I was talking to a few people that I hold in high regard. One of them was Curtis Stone from Freedom Farmers. He's a good friend of mine. We keep in touch regularly. I'll have him on the show again here pretty soon. And he was like, yeah, man, it seems like everything is just going bonkers and happening faster and faster and faster and faster. And it's something that I was observing as well. And he said it's probably because he thinks the war in Iran is all part of that. And the fact that CBDC, digital ID, controls on business, financial chicanery, it's all just boom, 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 boom. My belief is that this is all happening for two reasons. One, the predator class has a agenda that they want to see come to fruition, and they want to see it all implemented by 2030. Maybe you've heard of Agenda 21, the United Nations program that was created in 1992 that uses environmentalism as a means of instituting greater controls on our freedom on land. This is where the term sustainable development comes from. Well, they since updated Agenda 21. It's now the Agenda 2030 agenda, and that's where they get the sustainable development goals from, these SDGs, which seem nice and peachy, and this is all going to be great for equality, or as they call it, equity, which is an entirely different thing. And we're going to save the environment, and there's going to be higher standard of living for folks. But in all reality, what this is technocracy. Well, they have this big goal for 2030. To have this system instituted. So what is technocracy, you may be asking? Well, technocracy is a system of governance that instead of being ruled by politicians, people are ruled by algorithm and by artificial intelligence and by scientists and experts This is a movement that's been around for about 100 years. It had a resurgence under Zbigniew Brzezinski, and we see that it's now becoming even more popular, especially in the wake of COVID. If you understand what the Great Reset is, the program that was instituted by Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, where they want to reset the economy, reset how we relate to one another, reset how we work, reset governance with artificial intelligence, robotics, and all sorts of surveillance technology. That's essentially the essence of technocracy. And as we can see, this is now accelerating. Here at Live Free Academy, we are keeping an eye on this phenomenon. And more importantly, we're helping people with strategies to opt out of it before it's too late. Because essentially the walls are kind of closing in on people, the digital prison planet, so to speak. And it's going to get more and more difficult for people to exit this beast system. So I wanted to share with you guys some of the latest news when it comes to central bank digital currencies and digital ID as well, mostly central bank digital currencies, which I think is a huge concern. So I want to thank you if you're tuning in live. Let me know in the comments there on the old YouTube or Facebook where you're tuning in from, folks. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Live Free Now Show. I'm going to invite you to subscribe to the channel, but let's go ahead and hit some of the news. Now, this is a global phenomenon, and it's taking place in every single country. Some places it's accelerating faster than others. Some places it's shifting the approach, like here in the United States. It's not coming in the form of central bank digital currencies. That is a controlled currency that's issued by the central government. It's coming through the form of stable coins, which is a private sector cryptocurrency where one stable coin like Tether or US dollar circle is pegged to the value of the dollar. Shout out Maggie Shepard in New Mexico. Thank you so much for tuning in to the program. We appreciate you being here live. So some places it's happening faster, other places they're shifting strategy, but the main thing to be aware of here is that it's a global effort. There's even efforts to take the different types of central bank digital currency projects and make them interoperable. This is how they will create a global digital currency. Shout out to Michelle O'Connor, 5055 from Southwest Florida. Big fan of Florida. It's beautiful down there. I'm a fan of Texas, Florida, and of course, Tennessee. Those are some of my favorite places. I really do appreciate Mexico as well. I spend quite a bit of time in Mexico. We're going to break down some of the latest news on the Mexico front, where things are really heating up when it comes to technocracy down in Mexico. Mexico, ven por tu gente, vatos locos para siempre, güey. So recently in Mexico, let's go ahead and get into it right now. A great meeting was held, a big grand central bank meeting where all sorts of power players gathered. And this is something that old Derek Bros covered for the Last American Vagabond, where I get asked often, what are some trustworthy news sites? I definitely am a fan of Last American Vagabond and the news coverage that they bring. But as we can see, let me move this over here. As we can see, Last American Vagabond reports, as Derek Bros is writing, Mexico's central bank, the Bank of International Settlements, which is a central bank of central banks, essentially, and BlackRock, your favorite financial investment firm, BlackRock, they discuss phasing out cash and the future of digital money. This was the 89th Banking Convention. It was in Cancun, lavish Cancun. And of course, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, relatively new president that has really blown it when it comes to keeping Mexico safe. Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was there as well. In addition to BlackRock and the Bank of International Settlements, there were players from Visa and MasterCard, and they discussed a whole slew of things, among them ending cash and, of course, Mexico's ongoing biometric ID rollout. Now, there's two key pieces of what I call the four horsemen of technocracy. Now, these are four technologies that, when fully implemented, will really make things challenging for us to opt out, unless we set ourselves up ahead of time, which we're going to spend some time talking about later in the program. So stick around for that. If you're just joining us live, this is the Live Free Now show, where every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central, I bring you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live a free, prosperous, and healthy life. So among the things that were discussed is something that's really quite alarming here, right? So of course they're pushing central bank digital currencies. And this gentleman Romano here, several statements from Emilio Romana, who's the head of the Mexican Central Bank. He states, the central bank is preparing to publish protocols to drive the adoption of payments sent by mobile phones. He noted authorities are studying separate measures that can include eliminating cash payments for some services and products, such as gas stations and toll roads. Okay. Now let's notice they're saying digital payments by mobile phones. That's where most of these CBDC or stable coin or any digital payments will take place. Well, one thing that's advancing at a rapid and alarming rate in Mexico is the biometric ID in the form of digital ID. You see, in Mexico, they're requiring by June 30th, 2026, which is right around the corner, that everyone register with the digital ID in order to use their cell phone service. I mean, that's some pretty concerning stuff, folks, if you ask me. And this digital ID program will require, of course, a facial scan and also an iris scan. So this is no good. And now, of course, it's wild that in Mexico, because Mexico is quite a unique country. And I've spent a lot of time in Mexico. I lived in Acapulco for 6 months. I go back regularly for the People's Reset in Morelia, Mexico. I had the privilege and honor of visiting Cheran in Michoacan. That's the community that overthrew their local government and their corrupt police because they were in bed with local gangs exploiting their sacred forest and their sacred water supply that's been in the community for hundreds of years. In fact, I have quite a bit of Mexican blood flowing through my body, both Spanish, but actually indigenous Mexican blood. So I feel tied to the land and I have a good understanding of it. And it's unique in that there's a very weak central government. See, Mexico is quite the rural place. There are some major cities like Guadalajara and Mexico City, of course, which is a massive mega city. But for the most part, a lot of people live in rural farming communities. And it's very hard to govern those rural farming communities from Mexico City. This is one of the reasons why in that power vacuum, cartel organizations and large criminal enterprises have managed to create their own de facto authority, de facto government in many areas. So the prospect of rolling out a technological control grid in the form of digital ID and digital money seems like it would be quite the daunting task. This is especially the case because there's a whole lot of rural Mexicans that are laborers and live a simple life and aren't the most educated when it comes to technology. But nonetheless, the predator class is pressing on, and what's taking place in Mexico gives us a good look at how ambitious this agenda really is. The places that are more advanced and accelerated when it comes to this technocratic agenda will reveal a whole lot of how this agenda aims to be rolled out that we can learn from in other areas. Thankfully, here in the United States, it tends to be a little bit slower because there is a streak of independence and critical thinking and a lot of people pushing back. That being said, the predator class here in the United States, especially under the Trump administration, is extremely, extremely cunning, specifically how they managed to switch and completely trick and roll out this CBDC sneak attack where they're not issuing the central bank digital currency through central banks. Rather, it will be issued in the form of private sector stable coins, which have been captured by the federal government and captured by central banks even. So we have a de facto central government. And Le Grand Tureau states Larry Fink is both the head of BlackRock and now the head of the World Economic Forum. And that's correct. Thank you for pointing that out. It was supposed to be a little temporary chairmanship of the World Economic Forum, but he seems to still be holding that title, the best of both worlds. And meanwhile, they're running roughshod over our rights. So we see even in a rural country, even in a country that is relatively challenging to govern, we still have central bank digital currencies, and digital IDs pressing forward. And now we have a massive advancement taking place where recently, this was during that same event, that same 89th banking session that just took place. We have Claudia Scheinbaum, who stated, this is what she said. This is a big deal right here. Our goal is this year, we make it mandatory to pay for gasoline and toll booths digitally. This will allow us to promote accessible digital payments that allow us to advance the digitization of the country through many other schemes, gasoline and toll booths. Now, this is rather revealing for a variety of reasons. Let's go ahead and break it down for you right now. I'm a big fan of better understanding the predator class's strategy so as to more effectively evaluate strategies and tactics for navigating around their plans and their systems. And one thing that I noticed during the COVID era was that a key piece of their strategy I like to describe as the age-old bully tactic of twisting somebody's arm and getting them to say uncle. I don't know if that takes place nowadays, but maybe it was back in the movies. I'm thinking of good old Ralphie from A Christmas Story. But if you remember that evil Scott, was it Scott Farce or something, who was the bully, and he would twist your arm behind your back until you say uncle, say uncle. And that's exactly what the predator class is aiming to do with the public. Now, most people won't voluntarily take the mark of the beast, digital ID, central bank digital currency, especially most people in our freedom community or most critical thinkers or most people that have any semblance of self-respect. Now, mind you, many of the masses will go along to get along. They don't really think much of it. And when they're offered greater convenience in their payment systems, quicker settlement when they purchase something, or the ease and speed of being able to just scan a digital ID and soon in the future a chip in your palm or your wrist, then they'll probably go along to get along. But there's a contingent of the public that's critical. There's an even bigger and growing contingent of the public that understands exactly what this is. So in order to get those folks to play along with the agenda and to opt into these programs, the predator class is going to get you to say uncle. So how are they going to do that? Well, they revealed the key piece of their strategy during the COVID era as they were rolling out the clot shot, as many have come to know it. When the social media and public relations and Hollywood and late show hosts pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and a bunch of people buckled, and then a bunch of people buckled to save their grandparents, and then a bunch of people buckled because they still wanted to travel. Then they said, what do we need to do here? Well, let's start taking away things. Let's start making it harder for people to get by. Let's make it harder for people to live their lives. Let's say that unless you have the shot, you can't go to your daughter's dance recital. Unless you have the shot, you can't enter the restaurant. Unless you have the shot, you can't go back to life as usual and enjoy a drink at the bar and a musical interlude at the club. And then when there were still people that wouldn't buckle, they said, unless you have the shot, you can't go to work. And then ultimately, I think what got most people to buckle after that was a massive social pressure campaign. But that was revealing. Okay, they have something that is generally undesirable by a significant portion of the public, and they put it out voluntarily. You should do this. And a lot of people are like, no, this is untested, or this is the beast, or the mark of the beast, or I'm just not going to do it. And they say, wait, then let's put the squeeze on them. Let's twist their arm around their back and get them to say uncle by taking away privileges. All right, so that's one strategy. They also take away things that are of necessity. You see, for example, driving around the country that you reside in, if you have a gas-powered automobile, and I used to have a Tesla myself. I got rid of it. I used to be more of a fan of Elon Musk, and then I understood a little bit more that he's part of the other team. But nonetheless, don't fault me for that. The electric vehicle infrastructure in Mexico surely leaves a lot of room to be desired. I never would take a Tesla down into Mexico. Now I drive a Ford pickup truck, F-250. It sure burns a whole lot of petrol, and that's not optimal now where gas prices are. But nonetheless, I digress. What better way to control people than to take away their ability to drive to work or to drive to visit their parents or to take their children to school? Gasoline, wow. Forcing people into the digital payment system in order to live their lives, and something extremely necessary for day-to-day activity is driving longer distance with the toll road system. Now, this also serves the function of not just bringing people into digital payments, but also tracking people's movement. You see, that's one thing when you got a credit card or a debit card and you're going from gas station to gas station on a cross-country road trip, for example. And let's say you manage to avoid toll roads, which have license plate scanning cameras, which now are every day, everywhere, with the Flock camera system being rolled out all across the country. Even in small town Bastrop here in Texas, there's tons of these stupid cameras. But you go to the gas station, you go to the next gas station, you go to the next gas station, and you're banging on your credit card, your debit card. That's leaving a paper trail. Whereas if you're using cash and going from gas station to gas station, there's no trail outside of facial recognition technology and their surveillance cameras. But that takes quite a bit of work to go ask all these gas stations to turn over their cameras. Mind you, this is all going to be brought into one centralized system and database, and artificial intelligence algorithms are going to be used to track everything as it goes, which is precisely why they're creating all these data centers, so they have the processing power to compute and make use out of such vast amounts of information that they're sucking in. This is where things are going, folks. But the prospect of toll roads and gasoline being requiring digital payments is about bringing people into a digital, centralized, censorable, controllable, soon-to-be programmable payment system, the beast system, the financial control grid. But it's also about tracking people's freedom of movement. And it's ironic that Claudia Sheinbaum, I should say, the Mexican president, is focusing so much attention on tracking, tracing, controlling the general public, when at the same time criminal organizations in the form of drug trafficking cartels are able to basically run roughshod over the body politic down in Mexico. But again, it is indicative of how things are going, and it does reveal exactly what their strategies are to be. Later, when I talk about Haven Village, I just really want to drive home the point. Here at Live Free Academy, there's two things that we primarily focus on, and these two things are condensed down from 2 decades of freedom activism and researching the predator class and their agenda. That's right. I woke up in 2002. We're going to talk about the war in Iran as well. I was awake about what was happening, the predator class, the New World Order, the conspiratorial view of history. So when the Patriot Act passed, when the John Warner Defense Authorization Act that allowed for indefinite detention of American citizens, when the war in Iraq was sold on yellow cake uranium, weapons of mass destruction, the murdering of citizens, when Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell were testifying in front of the United Nations, I was aware that this is all a big, giant fraud. I was watching and I was paying attention, and that gave me perspective. I later shifted away from just being a conspiracy researcher and later in politics, and determined that if we want to create greater freedom in our lives, it's up to each and every one of us to take responsibility for creating that freedom by leveraging, creating, building, growing, participating in what are known as alternative institutions. That's what I used to call it. Now we often call it the parallel economy, parallel systems, or as Samuel Edward Konkin refers to this alternative freedom-based marketplace, the counter economy, the counter establishment economy. And in creating those alternative institutions, I came to find there's 2 areas that are of the utmost importance for you and I to experience liberty in our lifetime. There are 2 areas that will give us the greatest anti-fragility and resiliency when it comes to navigating around the beast system that we now see being erected all around us. Those 2 areas are counter economics, alternative financial systems, i.e. cryptocurrency, trading in precious metals, entrepreneurship, buying from other freedom people, selling to other freedom people, alternative means of building wealth. That's counter economic strategies. That's what we focus on at Live Free Academy, in addition to land and community strategies. So what are we going to do when we see that they're forcing people to use digital payment systems, digital ID, all sorts of stuff to merely travel about the country? Well, we better be damn content with where we happen to reside. We better be able to meet our wants and needs near or at our home. And what does that mean? Optimally, my friends, we're living in homesteads, on acreage, in rural areas outside of the smart city, 15-minute city control grid, where the predator class and their technocracy is going to be most present. Those are the two key areas that we focus on here at Live Free Academy. And before we go any further, folks, I want to take a short pause to mention one of our sponsors here on the program. We are super excited and honored to be sponsored on the Live Free Now show by Zaino, or as Ryan and I call him, Zainer. Zainer is a private cryptocurrency that allows users to send and receive digital payments with zero trace of who sent what to whom, when, and where, and how much they sent. That's right. We're talking a lot today about central bank digital currencies or stable coins. And I just want to point out and make crystal clear that when we're talking about central bank digital currencies or centralized controllable stable coins, we're talking about a digital payment system that has four characteristics. Four concerning characteristics, four characteristics that take away your financial sovereignty. These are digital payment systems that are centralized, censorable, that means they can stop you from sending or receiving money, surveillable, they can track and trace your payments, and programmable, they can limit who can buy what, spend what on what specific product, they can devalue the money, they can increase and incentivize people to buy certain things. That's what I mean when I say a central bank digital currency. When it comes to stable coins like Tether or US dollar Circle, these are cryptocurrencies that are pegged to the value of the US dollar. That's what's happening in the United States of America. Instead of these digital payments being issued, these digital payment systems, this digital cash being issued by a central bank, i.e. the name central bank digital currency, the United States is doing a CBDC sneak attack, and they're going to leverage stable coins for the same purpose, because these stable coin systems have those four characteristics: centralized, censorable, surveillable, and soon to be programmable, already programmable, but we're going to see some programmability taking place in the future. That's what I mean when I'm talking about a centralized CBDC type digital payment system. Zaino is not that, my friends, not in the least bit. Zaino is decentralized. Zaino is uncensorable. You can't stop anybody from sending any other money to anyone else. Zaino is not transparent, rather quite the opposite. Zaino is 100% private, and well, you know, it is kind of programmable in a way, which doesn't have to be a bad thing if these other three qualities are met. So Zaino, unlike Monero, another one of my favorite private cryptocurrencies, Zaino enables you to create tokens. Now, unless you're some sort of programmer or developer or have a business or whatever, you may not want to create tokens. We could create John Coin. You could create Network Metatron Coin. Zaino is Z-A-N-O, my friend, Z-A-N-O. The website is zaino.org, zaino.org. You can create tokens, or you can use tokens that have been created. One of those tokens is called Freedom Dollar. This is a private stable coin pegged to the value of the dollar, so you can use this currency privately, and you can maintain the stability of the value of the dollar, which is slowly going down in value. But this has many uses in the economy and decentralized finance platforms or in business platforms. Again, that's zaino.org. They're sponsors of the program. Next week, my friends, next week, I believe it's April 1st. Let me check and see if it's April 1st or April 8th. We're trying to line up more shows in the future, so we can rock and roll, move and groove. Yeah, next week, my friends, we are going to be joined by Quentin of Zaino. We're going to be joined by one of the lead guys behind the Zaino project that's been doing a whole lot to spread the word about this incredible technology. That's next Wednesday, April 1st, April Fool's Day, at 11 a.m. Central. So I want to shout out Zaino. Really grateful for having them support and sponsor the program. Again, the website is zaino.org. Let me drop that right there in the show notes. So like I was saying here on the program, we promote these alternative strategies of counter economics and building homesteads and building community in the country and getting to know your neighbors and growing your own food and having solar panel systems and all sorts of stuff. And honestly, it's really important part of being more free as we see them roll out this central bank digital currency beast system. Now, the challenge that we're facing here, though, is that they know that we have these private cryptocurrencies. They know that we're simultaneously, as they roll out the CBDC beast system, they know that we're pushing back and creating alternatives. So make no mistake, my friends, they are coming after our ability to do so. But thankfully, when you play your cards right, when you use cryptocurrency the right way, when you use the best cryptocurrencies, the privacy cryptocurrencies, as far as opting out of the beast system, when you acquire these cryptocurrencies privately, not through centralized exchanges, when you hold these cryptocurrencies in self-custodied wallets, a non-custodial wallet is what it's called, it's extremely challenging, if not impossible, for them to do anything. But when you have crypto and it's in a centralized platform like an exchange or a custodial wallet, that's where the wallet company, the service provider, essentially has access to your private keys. Every cryptocurrency address has a public address. It's kind of like your account number. And that address has a corresponding private key. It's the private key that gives you control over the cryptocurrency that's being sent to an address. It's the private key that lets you send crypto out of that address. Well, they're now, and they haven't been for a while, but they're accelerating this. They're coming up with strategies on how they can crack down on our ability to conduct business privately. But worry not, my friends. Like I said, there's ways to still do it. I break this down in a free webinar we put together recently called the Crypto Privacy Crackdown. You can check it out at livefree.academy/crackdown, livefree.academy/crackdown. I'll drop the link here in the description. I'm sorry, in the comments. But let me show you real quick. A report came out. Like I said, this is all happening rather fast. This guy, Luke Mikic, the 9-to-5 escape artist, March 9th, 2026, the U.S. quietly published a 34-page report where they said this: Congress should consider enacting a digital asset-specific hold law. This report also mentions digital ID 75 times. Oh, my goodness. Now, as you can see, this is what this hold law would do. Congress should consider enacting a digital asset, that's cryptocurrency, specific hold law that offers a safe harbor to institutions that temporarily and voluntarily hold digital assets involved in suspected illegal activity during a short duration investigation. Such a law should consider transparency when an asset is frozen and consumer protection measures. Such a law would be particularly useful for countering illicit finance involving permitted payment stable coins. So essentially, this law would require what the European Union, I believe, refers to as crypto asset service providers, CASPs, crypto asset service providers. Essentially, what we break down in the Crypto Privacy Crackdown strategic report is the control vector for the predator class, for the United States government, for other governments, the control vector that enables them to regulate, go after, censor, hold, if it's deemed to be illicit activity, air quotes for the podcast audience, is when you have a centralized company, a corporation, a regulated entity that is required to comply with these rules. So if they pass some sort of hold law that says there needs to be a mechanism in place for this exchange or this custodial wallet service to be able to hold or capture somebody's cryptocurrency payments, should that person be suspected of some sort of illegal activity, that can only take place through a regulated entity, a corporation, a centralized institution that is subject to regulations. Now, the beauty of what we teach here at Live Free Academy and what we encourage and what an entire movement of what I call crypto agorists, crypto anarchists, cypherpunks, the beauty of what we teach is there's strategies, technologies, platforms, cryptocurrencies, ways to acquire, ways to send and receive that are uncontrollable. They're not through corporations, limited liability companies, or centralized services. They're through decentralized, outside the system platforms that are extremely difficult to control. So when you get involved in the crypto space, if you're already in the crypto space, ensure that you are doing everything you can to keep your financial game in this unregulated, in this decentralized, in this privacy-centric space. And any hold law that the predator class aims to pass will largely be irrelevant, my friends. Now, a lot of people are rejoicing and saying, well, John, you keep saying all this stuff about central bank digital currencies in the United States of America, but I just saw that the Senate banned the digital dollar. Sounds like CBDCs aren't going to be a thing in the U.S. Ah, yes, my friends, the United States government and the Trump administration are very, very sneaky, my friend. If you recall, this lady's still in office, Senator Elizabeth Warren. If you recall, the Trumpster also passed an executive order banning CBDCs, but as I shared before, and our good friend Aaron Day does a lot of great research on this front, what took place in the United States is what I call a CBDC sneak attack, whereby the United States government is not moving forward with a central bank digital currency, a central bank issued digital payment. Rather, they are capturing the existing private company issued stable coins that the rails are already built. So you see, this was a clever, dramatic acceleration of the implementation of centrable, controllable, surveillable, programmable digital payment systems, because they're already created by the private sector. So what does the government do? Rather than create their own central bank digital currency, which would have all sorts of congressional and legal rigmarole, a lot of friction and slow movement, why don't we just capture a private sector system that's already built and spread all across the world? Oh my goodness, how clever and cunning the Trump administration was to do just that. And in order to pacify people and continue this deception, let's trick them into believing that we're banning CBDCs, and that's exactly what this bill does. The U.S. Senate passed the 21st Century Road to Housing Act yesterday by a vote of 89-10. Tucked into the final pages of this sweeping housing bill is a provision that has nothing to do with housing at all, a temporary ban on Federal Reserve issuing a central bank digital currency through December 31st, 2030. I wonder why they chose that date. Now, my friends, as I shared, and as we share time and time again, it matters not if they ban CBDCs, because the exact same system is already implemented in stablecoins, and soon we will see stablecoins taking more and more predominance in the legacy United States financial system. As well, we will see banks issuing their own stablecoin as well, in order to ease the efficiency of payments across the board here in the United States. But make no mistakes, my friend, this is no different than a central bank digital currency as we shared. It has those same sweeping characteristics. Hey guys, if you're just tuning into the program, this is the Live Free Now show, where every Wednesday from 11 a.m. Central to 12 p.m., I bring you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live a free, prosperous, and healthy life. I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. We're continuing to grow and improve what we're doing here. We're continuing to have amazing guests on the program. As I pointed out before, next week we'll be joined by none other than the Zano folks. We'll be joined by a gentleman who is doing a lot of great work in the Zano ecosystem to get the word out there about this incredible privacy cryptocurrency. He goes by the name of Mr. Quibbs, Kwibs, Mr. Quibbs. You'll be able to tune in live April 1st, April Fool's Day at 11 a.m. Central. I hope you'll join for that. Hit the subscribe button there and hit the bell notification to know when we go live. Okay, so earlier, we started by talking about the war in Iran. And as that was popping off, a couple good friends of mine, somebody that I hold in high regard, was saying, man, things seem like they're really accelerating. Perhaps the war in Iran is a big piece of this. Now, when we see wars kick off, it creates a dramatic opportunity for the predator class, not only to expand their foreign conquest and play their geopolitical games, but also advance the predator class technocratic agenda. They institute police state, foreign war, aggression, genocide in some instances abroad while rolling out the police surveillance state at home. But I want to talk a bit about geopolitics, because before I got into this anti-technocracy thing and pushing back on the Great Reset early on, I was mainly an anti-war activist. We went to anti-war rallies. We organized big events. I was part of the American Civil Liberties Union, and I went deep on researching exactly the geopolitical implications of the war on terror. And I want to point out there's a gentleman named Wesley Clark. Some of you may remember him. Wesley Clark had this quote during an interview with Democracy Now! If you guys remember that, the War and Peace Report. Y'all remember that? And he stated that the U.S. plans to attack 7 Muslim countries. This was in 2007. This was an interview with retired U.S. Army General Wesley Clark. He ran for president in 2004. I mistakenly voted for John Kerry and the Democrats because I thought he was going to end the war in Iraq. Of course, John Kerry didn't win and went to George W. Bush, who continued the war in Iraq. But the Democrats took control of the House and Senate shortly thereafter in 2006, and they most definitely did not end the war in Iraq. Rather, they advanced it. This is when I learned to see through the left-right paradigm. So being in the game and being aware has given me quite the perspective to abandon politics altogether quite a long time ago. But if you recall, General Wesley Clark, let me know in the comments. Do you guys remember this? Do you guys know these 7 countries? He said there was a memo that came out of the Pentagon, and it said in the next 5 years, this was 2007, in the next 5 years, the U.S. plans to take out, quotes, take out 7 countries: Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. Now, they didn't get that done in 5 years. It took a little bit longer, but if you understand the history of U.S. military intervention in the Middle East and Africa, you see that there have been massive skirmishes, including entire regime change, like in Libya, that have taken place in each and every one of those countries. Understand, please, that this is all part of a plan, all part of a program, in large part being pushed by the nation state of Israel and the Zionist regime that seeks to create what they call Greater Israel and establish massive boundaries beyond the existing plan and country of Israel that was instituted in the Balfour Declaration by the Rothschild family. So this war in Iran, I just want to make it crystal clear, and I hope if you're watching the program, which actually based on some of my past conversations about Donald Trump and the war in Iran, there's still a lot of MAGA loyalists, even in this audience, or maybe you came across the stream from your YouTube feed. So let's be crystal clear, my friends. I see Organic Ari Becca had a question about Bitcoin. We're actually going to talk about Bitcoin here in just one moment. I'm going to share one of the comments from my Alec Zeck interview, and we're going to talk deep about Bitcoin. So thanks for sharing that, Rebecca. I hope that you're still with us on the program here as we continue on the show. I just want to make it crystal clear, my friends, the reason why the United States military is bombing Iran and why it is looking more and more like there soon will be boots on the ground, troops in the area, troops potentially invading Iran, has nothing to do with weapons of mass destruction. If you go back and see these compilation videos of Bibi Netanyahu going before the United Nations, just as Colin Powell did, and talking about yellow cake uranium, the parallels are ridiculous. It's not about weapons of mass destruction. And it most definitely is not about liberating the people of Iran. The United States government could care less about the people of Iran. The United States government, I hate to break it to you folks, isn't some moral regime that seeks to create democracy across the world. That's not what these wars aren't about. The wars are about propping up the military-industrial complex, just as it has been for so many decades. As Smedley Butler wrote in his little book pamphlet, War is a Racket. It's also about fulfilling the financial needs and demands of the multinational corporations and especially the oil industry. It's about projecting geopolitical dominance in a region out of an insecure desire to prevent other global superpowers from doing the same thing. And more, this particular skirmish in Iran is about pleasing the master that is the Zionist regime in Israel, because as many people are more aware than ever before, the Israeli influence over the United States' foreign policy and entire political system could not be more powerful. And if you ask me, one of the reasons why Israel keeps the United States government on a very, 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 very short leash is because their intelligence agency, Mossad, wholeheartedly played a major role, if not led, the Epstein-Brownstone operation. Have you ever heard the term Brownstone operation? It's a blackmail operation where you put powerful people in precarious situations, like raping young girls and who knows what else. All sorts of other creepery is alluded to in these Epstein files. You record them, you film them, and then you blackmail them. That precisely is why such injustice is allowed to proceed in the Gaza region, why the United States government kowtows to Israel, continues to make excuses for Israel, and funds massive foreign interventions on behalf of Israel. It's not in the best interest of the United States of America. Now, when this skirmish first kicked off, I was, debating online with folks in the Bastrop County Uncensored group, Living in Bastrop Uncensored. There's this great big group that this guy Judah organizes that I'm buddies with here. It's got like 18,000 people here in Bastrop, which is 10% of the population of Bastrop County, essentially. And then because the algorithm was getting messed up, he created a Bastrop Uncensored group where people could debate stuff. Funny enough, the reason he did that was because somebody had this just completely critical post excoriating Israel in the main group, and it created all sorts of controversy. And he noticed that the algorithm kind of penalized the group after that. Long story short, I was posting in this new uncensored group about the war in Iraq, or the war in Iran, looking more and more like the war in Iraq, and it's likely to turn into a quagmire. And you have the MAGA loyalists. I'm here in a very red town of Bastrop, Texas. The MAGA loyalists come about and say, how is this anything like the war in Iraq? It's not like the war in Iraq in the least bit. It's going to be over in 7 days. Trump's our savior. He can do no wrong. He's just such a masterful negotiator and player that no matter what happens in reality, whatever he says goes, and we believe 100% of what he says. Boy, oh boy, that is not a good situation to be in, my friends, which is precisely why we should never worship politicians. We should not put our faith in politicians to solve our common problems. Rather, we should take responsibility for solving those problems. We should remember who we are. We should take back our power. We should trust our inner authority and recognize that we're creative beings, and it's our role, especially if you know what we know, to get off your butts and to take action and to build and create and to be just beacons of hope and freedom, creators, builders, not complainers, and most definitely not folks that abrogate responsibility and hand over internal authority to folks like Donald Trump. So he's like, this isn't like the war in Iraq at all. And I was like, yeah, it's weapons of mass destruction. We'll be greeted as liberators. Mission accomplished. If you remember the George Bush on the aircraft carrier, mission accomplished. And then the war dragged on for many, many years. In many ways, it's still a total quagmire. And then, of course, boots on the ground and just never-ending spending and death for American soldiers and families and orphaned children, and just not good at all. So guys, that's what's going to take place. And then you take things a step further. This is something, in some of my relationships, I would always be frustrated because even still to this day with my children and others, it's like you're trying to talk to somebody, you're trying to correct somebody, you're trying to give them feedback about something that just happened. And all the emphasis is on this little happening that just took place, this recent phenomenon that took place just now or an hour ago or yesterday. And then people make excuses for this. This happened because of that. That happened because of this. But oftentimes when you're trying to correct something or give feedback, you recognize a pattern, a historical phenomena that takes place over and over. Now, track with me here. A lot of people are focused on what the media tells them to focus on when it comes to the war in Iran. This itty bitty little slice of history whereby there was the uprising of the young people in Iran more recently. See right there? See my eye through there? Uprising of the people of Iran, and there was apparently massive suppression. Thousands and thousands of protesters were killed and repressed. There was repression. And now let's go to war with them. And there's these recent instances of them enriching uranium and expanding their nuclear program. And then see, we're looking at this little slice of history here, ignoring what Wesley Clark said in 2007, ignoring the 1979 Iranian Revolution, ignoring all of the craziness that took place with the Iranian hostage crisis, and most definitely ignoring what took place in 1953 when Mohammad Mossadegh was overthrown, when the Iranian democratically elected leader was overthrown at the behest of Great Britain and oil interests by the Central Intelligence Agencies, because Mohammad Mossadegh was seeking to nationalize the oil fields and the oil industry so it would more effectively benefit the Iranian citizenry as opposed to multinational oil corporations. And what did the Central Intelligence Agency do on behalf of the oil companies? Instituted a coup and overthrew the democratically elected president, installing their own figure that was loyal and kind to the oil companies. That created all sorts of distrust in the government, only to later result in the 1979 Iranian Revolution, where the Ayatollah and an autocratic Islamic regime was put in place, which has led to much of the catastrophe today. This is what Chalmers Johnson, a war historian who wrote The Empire of Bases, pointed out all this military conquest and United States military bases all across the Middle East and the globe, rather, in the wake of World War II. He also had a book called Blowback, which is precisely what Ron Paul talks about so eloquently in his 2007, 2008, and 2012 presidential campaign. You can't expect to go intervene in all of these foreign governments and not expect for there to be blowback, sometimes years, if not decades later. That's exactly what's taking place. And it all goes back even further to the Great Britain and the United States government carving up the Middle East after World War II. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And unfortunately, so many people are blinded by the propaganda, but thankfully more and more people are waking up. And to tie this back together to what we were speaking about earlier, it's my belief that the predator class is accelerating their aims to institute their financial and predatorial technocratic control grid. They're accelerating this at breakneck speed because they're losing their grip. Because with the advent of the internet, while they try to censor and suppress the information and the truth from getting out there, more and more people are waking up, mistrusting and rejecting the authority of these centralized predatory systems. So in order to ensure that they maintain their power and their megalomaniacal control over the body politic of the world, they have to put this system into place before the people reject their authority altogether. Woo! Now we got two more things to do on the program here, my friends. We may go a little bit over our 12 o'clock normal stop time. If you're just joining us, I want to thank you for catching the program. I also want to shout out another sponsor of the show, Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. It's a subscription-based program that allows you to purchase regular stashes of precious metals. You can check them out at livefree.academy/wolfpack, livefree.academy/wolfpack. I am on the Warrior Pack. All right, head over here, join their email newsletter. Gold and silver subscriptions shipped directly to you. I'm on the Warrior Wolf Pack. Again, you purchase 35, 50, 125, 250, $2,000, $1,000 a month worth of precious metals. It's essentially dollar cost averaging. So no matter what the price of silver is, you're purchasing $125 a month, $250 a month. So over time, this puts you in a better position than trying to time the market. They also send nice little tradable silver. So not only is this valuable if you're trying to protect your wealth or grow your wealth from dollar inflation or from the manipulation of the stock market, but they also send tradable, spendable precious metals, silver dimes, silver quarters, silver ounces, little 1/10 of an ounce silver pieces. This effectively helps us to grow the counter economy, trade amongst ourselves, recruit farmers market vendors to accept precious metals. Go to your local grocer, go to local gas station, go to local mom and pop bookstore, go to the gun store, the hardware shop, wherever you regularly frequent, wherever you ideally have a relationship with the business owner. You should have relationships with business owners. You can ask them, hey, are you willing to accept precious metals in exchange for your goods and services? Because I got a pocket full of about $200 worth of silver, and I sure would love to get you to start accepting it, because it's not just me. I got a crew of people here locally that would buy some of your goods and services. They'd be elated to come give you business as opposed to your competitor down the street if you were to accept precious metals. It's all about creating a counter economy, our own alternative currency system, so we don't have to rely on the beast system, which is growing increasingly corrupted, increasingly centralized, controlled, surveillable, digitized in a bad way. So head over to livefree.academy/wolfpack. That's livefree.academy/wolfpack and set up your subscription today. It's their generous support that makes this show possible. All right, my friends, let's break down something. So I was recently interviewed on Alec Zeck's Way Forward podcast. And I tell you what, I hold this guy, Alec Zeck, in high regard. He's extremely intelligent. He's extremely grounded. And I think he's a bit younger than I am. I'm 41. I don't know exactly how old he is. I think he's a bit younger than I am. But boy, I tell you what, he is wise beyond his years. If you're not familiar with Alec Zeck, he's the man. Anyway, long story short, I did an interview with him recently that I want to bring to your attention. How to actually live free, self-governance, parallel communities, and Bitcoin with John Bush. Great interviews, about 2 hours long. We get into Bitcoin. I break down how it works in a very simple way. You can see my algorithm here. I've been watching a little Yellowstone stuff. And me and the kiddo have been listening to Mr. Beast content to learn how he grew his empire. And of course, I'm always studying up on biblical veracity and history. Big fan of Wes Huff. Anyway, a little glimpse into what I watch. In addition, all sorts of entrepreneurial stuff as well. So anyway, I was on his program. We talked a lot about Bitcoin. If you're somebody that's like, man, John, you talk a lot about Bitcoin. I'm kind of new to what you're doing here. And I just don't trust that Bitcoin stuff. It just seems like there's some scammery going on. I'm just, man, I can't wrap my head around it. Watch this interview, guys. I dropped the link there, or you could just search John Bush, Alec Zeck on YouTube, John Bush, Alec Zeck on YouTube. If you're a podcast guy, you can scroll down here in the show notes. And I guess he doesn't have links to the podcast here. You can go over to the Way Forward, though, and check out the podcast. Head over to the Way Forward. You'll be able to find the show notes. Or the show on the podcast form. But I break down Bitcoin in depth. In fact, Zeck said he's had a lot of guests on about Bitcoin, and he still hasn't managed to understand it. But now he does understand it. There was a comment saying, oh my God, I finally understand Bitcoin as well. So really excited about all that. You see me teaching with my hands, as I like to do. But I want to highlight this comment and just respond to this comment here that someone made with a lot of criticisms about Bitcoin, because there was a whole lot to cover here, and I wanted to hit that up. So what they said was, this one's here. The authority running the cryptocurrency is the government through government registry and their regulatory system for taxation purposes. Make no mistake, I'm not sold on this medium of electronic exchange. All right, so that was one of their comments. Let me see the other one. Rule number 1, he who creates, owns, and controls. This is the same person, okay? The creators of Bitcoin will always create a kill switch and a backdoor within the system they create. It has been said by insiders of the cryptocurrency world that the private keys used to fulfill transactions are being captured milliseconds prior to the transactions taking place. Although cryptocurrency wallets are not directly registered with the government in the way the bank account is, wallets held on custodial exchanges are subject to know your customer rules, linking your identity to the wallet for tax reporting. Private non-custodial wallets are anonymous, but can be traced and seized via legal orders if the owner is identified. Now, he's making some great points there. First, let's hit this comment. And I just wanted to respond to this a little more lengthy. He says the authority running the cryptocurrency is the government through their government registry and the regulatory system for taxation purposes. Make no mistake, I'm still not sold on this medium of electronic exchange. Now, just want to point out one thing we covered in the program was a lot of people are critical of Bitcoin and digital money. He says, I'm not sold on this medium of electronic exchange. He doesn't say I'm not sold on electronic exchange or digital money in the first place. But a lot of people that are most critical of Bitcoin, a digital payment system that's decentralized, are using digital payments altogether, but they're using centralized digital surveillable digital payments. And again, unless somebody is using a significant amount of their transactions in cash, unless somebody's trading with silver, unless somebody's engaging in a ton of barter, they're necessarily using digital payments. Every time you scan a credit card, every time you use Venmo, every time you use PayPal, every time you transfer money, every time you use a paper check, that goes through an electronic money system called the Federal Reserve Bank Clearinghouse. So I just want to point out, like a lot of people most critical of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency are still doing most of their financial payments with centralized, controllable, censorable digital payment systems. Now, the claim that the authority running Bitcoin is the government, this isn't true at all. There is no authority that's running cryptocurrency. It's a decentralized system. The authority, the entities, the people, the institutions that are quote unquote running cryptocurrency are miners, which are the computers that verify the transaction. I break that down nice and slow and very simple if you're wanting to understand in this interview. The nodes, those are people that host the blockchain on computer servers. The blockchain is a collection of all the transactions. Then you have a collection of wallet companies that create wallets that allow you to send and receive cryptocurrency, exchanges as well, and industry players. It's all of these institutions that come into an agreement on what version of software we're going to run that is the Bitcoin protocol. It's a decentralized system. And now it's not perfect. Nobody's claiming for it to be perfect. But my friends, one exercise that we need to embark upon when we're comparing options for sending and receiving money. And I want to note, we know not 2247's comment. Thank you for participating in the program, 2247. We appreciate you being on the show. Why are we using the very tech that they're using? Why are we using the very tech that they're using? By they, I'm sure you're referring to the predator class. We've been talking about central bank digital currencies for the past hour. Well, what I'm encouraging people to use for online payments is decentralized cryptocurrency platforms. They want us to use centralized cryptocurrency platforms or centralized digital payment systems. Now, again, many of the people that are critical of Bitcoin or Monero or Zano or other cryptocurrencies are using centralized digital payment systems like Venmo, checking accounts, debit cards, credit cards for most of their payments. We're already using their payment system technology, most of us, for a significant portion of our transactions. Yet we're critical of this new payment system, digital online payment system, in large part because we don't understand it. And that's okay. That's what the problem I aim to solve on the show in this interview with Zeck, which I want to invite you guys to listen to. Again, you can just search Alec Zeck, John Bush. You'll find it. The title is great interview, 2 hours long. He breaks it down. We break it down. How to actually live free, self-governance, parallel communities, and Bitcoin with John Bush. Now, let's hit the other comment. Okay, so the difference we know, not 2247, is primarily that the payment platforms that we want to use for online payments, if we want to continue to use the internet to make payments, which a lot of people do for online shopping or sending and receiving money amongst ourselves, then I'm advocating that we use decentralized, uncensorable cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Monero, and Zano. The alternative is to use centralized, censorable, controllable online payment systems. Now, it's a totally different ballgame if you're going to a local farmer's market, or if somebody's coming over and helping you to do some work on your property and they accept precious metals or barter, or you hand over cash. That's offline. But to do online payments, which most people do, it's my proposition, what the proposal I'm putting forward is that you should learn to use cryptocurrency, because CBDCs are being rolled out. The digital financial system is going to control and put checks and balances on people and their ability to do business in this system. So we need to have our alternative financial system that's outside of their control. All right, I hope that makes sense. And again, thank you so much for the question, the comment, and for tuning in. Now, let me go to this other piece of the question, and then I'm going to wrap up by sharing a bit about my experience down at Haven Village, an incredible off-grid private realm regenerative agriculture community. So the next part, he says, he who creates, owns, and controls. The creators will always create a kill switch and a backdoor within the system they create. Now, you see, with Bitcoin and most other cryptocurrency projects, they're what's known as open source. Open source means it's a piece of software where the code, the ones and zeros, the if this, then that developer programming language is completely transparent and auditable. So were there to be a backdoor or a kill switch, it would be evident in the code. But this code is visible and readable by countless cypherpunk crypto anarchist developers, mainstream type folks that can read and write code. And I tell you what, it's now 2026. That code has been available for viewing since late 2008, 2009. That's 16, 17 years. Where's this kill switch? Where's this backdoor? Why has it not been discovered through the transparent auditable code? Why has the kill switch not been activated? There's tons of activity that the government doesn't like that's taking place on these cryptocurrency networks. He has some other complaints about the private keys being captured milliseconds prior. I've never heard that. I don't see that taking place. My crypto hasn't been wrecked or taken. So he does make a good point. When you register your crypto wallet through an exchange and do your know your customer check, that's a problem. That is a problem, my friends. We teach you how to use cryptocurrency, how to acquire cryptocurrency, how to send and receive cryptocurrency without having to scan your driver's license or use a centralized exchange through our Live Free Academy Accelerator program. You can actually test drive our program for 30 days for just $1. Take a test drive of our accelerator membership. livefree.academy/test drive is the website for that. livefree.academy/test drive. If you want to join our membership program, free for $1 for 30 days, cancel anytime. I got all sorts of tutorials, instructions, master classes on how to do that. KK15940, thanks so much for tuning into the program. I hope you're subscribed to Live Free Now Show. You can subscribe down there on that button right there. What about Ledger Hardware? Good wallet? No, my friend, I do not recommend Ledger. In fact, I discourage people from Ledger Hardware wallet. Much prefer Trezor, Trezor.io, Trezor.io. Much prefer people to use Trezor instead of Ledger. Ledger's been hacked. Ledger has some backdoors that you have to opt into that gives them access to your private keys, but I would encourage you to use Trezor. A hardware wallet is a physical USB device. I used to have one sitting right around here that enables you to store your cryptocurrency private keys off of your computer. We know, not know has a response. Most people do tech of payments online because we've been groomed to do this. I do get that it won't matter what we use for payments, i.e. Bitcoins and dollars, but the whole tech from the internet to the current is a trap. You know, we know not 2247. I think people do payments online, not because they've been groomed, but because the internet and e-commerce, online retail, is an incredibly convenient means of acquiring and selling goods and services. Not everything is a conspiracy, my friend. I just really want to encourage people. Sometimes we get caught in a trap in this conspiracy world of ours where we think every single thing, every crack in the road, I'm being facetious, but we think every single little thing about the world and society and every phenomenon that we come across is part of some vast conspiracy to control us. And I tell you what, my friend, that can be quite disempowering when you walk down that path. Yes, the internet was created by the Department of Defense. Yes, the internet has many uses for surveillance and control, but the internet is also an extremely liberating place where you can send and receive information in an encrypted way where no government, NSA, no corporation, no big tech can intercept that communication. You can also keep in touch with family and loved ones and relatives all over the world. We can build entire networks and freedom communities online, connecting with one another, letting people know that we're going to be hosting an event here on this day, and we'd love for you to come so we can talk about how we can opt out of the beast system. Having someone engage in an online service for you. Can you give me some coaching? Can you give me some consulting? Can you build a website for me? Can you build this logo design? If I send you some money, do you think you can go look after my house or check in on this or that? And in order to make that payment, we use an internet online service. It's not all part of some evil protocol. And we not says exactly convenient. This is the angle. Sometimes convenience is a good thing. I mean, I have an automobile. If you have an automobile, you could make the same argument. The automobile is part of a New World Order conspiracy to control us because it's more convenient than the horse-drawn carriage. You see what I'm saying here? It's a logical trap that you go down when you think every single thing is part of some grand conspiracy. Yes, they are using convenience as a means of roping people in to further control systems like the central bank digital currency system. But to say that online payments in general and the internet in general is part of this predator system, I reject that wholeheartedly because I've had much benefit, much great freedom, connection, and I've engaged in a lot of commerce outside of their purview, under the table, through digital currency that is decentralized and private, and they have nothing they can do about it. It's very disempowering, in fact, for the predator class. So I want to encourage you to flip your script and opt out. This is not how Yeshua designed us to be, convenience. Well, why don't you be the first? I don't want to be rude, and I want to thank you for tuning into the program. I hope you continue to watch our show here. But then why don't you be the one to lead the way and turn your computer off and not use it ever again, or give up your automobile or public transportation? I don't think it's a sin to use the internet. I'm familiar with Yeshua's teachings, and I don't see anything about the sin of convenience at all. And God created us in his image. God's the creator of the universe. We have a creative capacity. I don't see why we shouldn't use technology in order to fulfill our God-given purpose on this planet, which is to radiate light and love and to spread the gospel. Anyway, we'll save that for Sunday. I appreciate you though. I hear you. Okay, guys, I got one more thing to cover for you. And we know not 2247. You'll appreciate this. Let's move beyond the internet and beyond digital payment systems, whether they're centralized or decentralized like cryptocurrency. And let's talk about my good friends River and Amani and this incredible community that they created at Haven Village. We're going to wrap up in 7 minutes. We'll go an hour and 20 minutes today on the Live Free Now show. If you're still tuning in, thank you. If you joined us midway through the program, this is Live Free Now show, where every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central, I'm live bringing you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live free, prosperous, and healthy life. We have a podcast that you can subscribe to. We also have a live YouTube show. I want to encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm a trustee and a partner in this incredible 216-acre eco development project called Haven Village. And I just spent an entire week there with my kids and my parents. And I tell you what, it was so inspirational. This is my third time being there. I've known River and Amani, the founders of this project, for maybe 4 years now. And I tell you what, they are an incredible pair of human beings that work their butts off and have an incredible vision. It's one thing to have an idea and a vision. It's a whole nother thing to be able to put this vision into action and make it a reality. And that's exactly what's taking place in Old Fort, Tennessee at Haven Village. It's a private realm community. So there's no LLC, there's no nonprofit, there's no homeowners association. It's entirely organized and stewarded in the private realm. What does that mean? The public realm is statutory, man-made law, creating corporations, all that stuff. Now you bring yourself under the purview and in partnership with government, bureaucrats, politicians, law enforcers. The private realm is outside of the public realm. It's when free people come together and voluntarily contract with one another in order to create order and to pursue a common purpose. If you want to learn more about this, we have a free webinar, divinepma.com/webinar, divinepma.com/webinar. It's the private membership association I put together, hosts that webinar. Well, I tell you what, this immersion, the whole purpose of it was to find potential new residents. Right now, there's a handful of people that are living on the property. We're aiming to bring on another 20 or so new members. Again, it's a private membership association. There's custom hemp-built homes. It's really cool. And every time I'm out there, I tell you what, there's this pursuit that we all have of the good life, of the ability to just be at peace, just to be like, hey, there's this predator class. I hear all the stories, the articles. John Bush has been talking about it for 45 minutes today, or an hour, 10 minutes today. And I just wish I could just get back to the land and live and grow my own food and raise chickens and poultry and butcher pigs and sit around the campfire and play the guitar and relax while the children frolic and hope they don't get chiggers. What if we could just have chiggers be our biggest worry? I hope you guys know what chiggers are. They're nasty little pesky little pests that'll really get you itching and scratching. But that's what I got to experience with my time at Haven Village. And that's what it is we're trying to build there. And I'll tell you what, I've shared some of my adversity and struggles that I had recently, and they still continue to linger, actually. It's wild how some mishaps and missteps and acting in a manner that's not in alignment with Yeshua's teachings can continue to come back and haunt us. And it just reminds us that it's ever more important that we live a life that's as righteous as possible. Because when we step out of God's graces and we ignore Jesus's teachings, there tends to be negative consequences. But nonetheless, after a year of great adversity, I stuck through that year of adversity, learning about myself, deepening my relationship with God, and further committing myself to my mission, my divine purpose. That's the name of the private membership association I created, Divine Purpose PMA. My divine purpose, like purpose that's been given to me by God to pursue, to fulfill. That's why I'm doing this show. That's why I started Live Free Academy. That's where the idea for the Freedom Cell Network was gifted to me. Perhaps that's why I've been gifted with this ability to speak and ramble for an hour and 20 minutes with such barely an outline or whatever, because I have a mission in life. And that mission is to create an environment where people that care about freedom can experience true self-governance. We can experience communities that are politically autonomous, that enjoy political autonomy outside of the authority of government, and especially outside of the control of the beast system. That's my mission. And after a year and lingering adversity in 2025 and beyond, it pushed me closer to my purpose. And I tell you what, my friends, if you're familiar with my work, you know that this project, Haven Village, is 110% aligned with this purpose of mine. So I'm deeply honored to be able to be a part of it and to be able to help River and Amani, who are incredible human beings with an amazing work ethic, vision, and ability to get it done, to be a part of that project and to offer whatever talents and skills and network and relationship and thoughts that I have and action that I can apply to the project to make it even more successful. So I want to invite you guys, if you want to learn more about the project, I know I keep throwing out webinars, but that's how we communicate with our audience. And you should know in these webinars, not only do we give you a good dose of free information and education, you'll leave feeling inspired and hopeful, but we also always invite you to work deeper with us in one way or another. And if you do want to learn more about the community, you can go to divinepma.com/haven, divinepma.com/haven. That'll take you to the Path to Resiliency webinar. This is a picture of the community. I mean, look at that, 216 acres of rolling hills, forest, and pasture, and incredible views. Wow. You can register and get instant access to the webinar. Note, when you register, you become a member of our Divine Purpose Private Membership Association. So make sure you read the member agreement. But you can just register here and get instant access to this replay where you can learn all about the project. They are hosting another immersion in September. They're hosting another immersion. If you're interested in being a member, you can go to havenearthtradeschool.net/visit. havenearthtradeschool.net/visit. If you're interested in being a member, that'll help you to tap into what they're doing. September 17th through the 21st, September 17th through the 21st. Go ahead and check that out, guys. So look, to bring it all together, my friends, the war in Iran kicked off February 28th in the cover of darkness. Donald Trump is up to no good. Unfortunately, he is now showing himself to be nothing more than a puppet of Israel's Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu and the Zionist regime of Israel, which has taken control of the United States government through treachery, deceit, endless donations, and the brownstone operation known as Jeffrey Epstein. And my friends, what I tell you is, with this war in Iran, we see a dramatic acceleration of the technocratic agenda. They're pushing closer to the year 2030, which is when they want to have all of this nonsense implemented fully and wholeheartedly. Not to mention more and more people, thanks to the internet and our ability to connect with one another and to receive information that isn't necessarily controlled by their centralized mainstream media propaganda channels, many people are waking up to the deception and rejecting the authority of government. And the time between action is something that I learned from this cool guy, Nico, while I was at Haven Village. He was pointing out over dinner, like the time between conspiracy happening, like people conspired and pulled off this world event, and everybody waking up to realize it was a conspiracy. You know, like JFK, they still haven't revealed exactly what happened. It's probably LBJ that was involved with it. Roger Stone has a lot of great research on that front. But the time between conspiracy and then everyone knowing the truth is condensing to where now when something happens, everybody just assumes it's a conspiracy and they don't believe it. Now, the masses mostly believe it, but more and more people are joining the ranks of the critical thinking, the red pill, as we call ourselves. And the predator class is taking notice. And they're like, man, we got to figure this New World Order system out, this control grid out, because the people are no longer believing us and buying our nonsense. So we got to force them into submission by getting them to say uncle, by taking away privileges, by controlling their ability to earn a living, by forcing them into compact 15-minute city surveillance societies, by forcing them to use digital payment systems that are censorable, surveillable, programmable, centralized. If they want to put gas in their car or travel through these toll roads, that's happening. It's happening fast, my friends. But worry not, there are solutions. It's up to each and every one of us to take responsibility for opting out of this beast system, to not only care about ourselves selfishly. There's nothing wrong with that. We should want to create freedom and prosperity for ourselves and our family that's alive today. But let us also act in a manner that sets future generations up for success. Because not everybody is going to opt out. Not everybody is going to be prepared ahead of time. Some of these people are going to get stuck and trapped in the beast system, and they're not going to have any way out. And they're going to birth children and children and children and children. Multiple generations will be born into this beast system. So it's up to you and I to exit that beast system now build a system that's in alignment with our values, and continue to teach the next generation about the spirit of freedom, encouraging them to always live in alignment with the divine and pursue their purpose to the best of their ability. That's our mission in life at Live Free Now and in the Live Free Academy programs. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, my friends. Thanks to all the new voices and faces we see. Subscribe to the channel. Join us next week, April 1st. April Fools will be joined by some folks to talk about Zano, or as Ryan and I call him, Zaner. This is the Live Free Now show, where every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central, you can find me live here on my YouTube channel, bringing you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live free, prosperous, and healthy life. Until next time, stay free, my friends. Peace.